She sat in the hospital hallway holding her sick child, praying for good news. When her husband stormed in shouting, "I can't waste my life on you two anymore. I got a real chance at money." He turned his back and walked away, leaving them both crying. What he didn't know, that same morning, his wife had just won a $500 million government contract. And he just walked away from the biggest blessing of his life. Before we begin, subscribe to our channel and comment where you are watching from so we can bring more stories like these. The nights in the Thompson apartment always felt heavier than the days, but tonight the weight pressed harder on Maya's shoulders than usual. She sat at the small kitchen table, her laptop open and glowing faint blue across her tired face. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound filling the hollow space, and every so often she glanced toward the hallway to make sure Eli was still sleeping. She had promised herself she would take a break, breathe, rest just for 5 minutes, but she couldn't. Not when deadlines towered over her like dark clouds waiting to burst. Not when her son's life depended on the job she was trying so hard to keep. Maya wasn't just an engineer. She was a genius disguised as a worn-out mother with dark circles beneath her eyes. Every blueprint she drew, every chip she designed, every simulation she ran carried the weight of her son's future. She refused to complain because there was no one to listen. Derek certainly wasn't. He was out again, chasing another big break, another imaginary jackpot that never existed outside his fantasies. Maya didn't have the luxury of dreaming. She lived in the real world, one where the rent was due, prescriptions weren't cheap, and little boys with fragile lungs needed medicine that insurance didn't always cover. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, coding quietly, while her mind drifted to Eli. 6 years old and already carrying pain his small body shouldn't have known. He was asleep now, curled up with his stuffed dog tucked under his arm, his breaths shallow but steady. Every time she checked on him, her heart fractured a little more. She wished she could take all his pain onto herself. She wished Derek cared half as much as she did. The apartment door slammed open, Derek's signature entrance. Maya didn't even flinch anymore. She had grown numb to the sound of his impatience. He was already on the phone, barking orders to someone, pacing back and forth like a manager of a company he didn't actually own. His voice sliced through the silence like a blade. "I said I want it done tonight. Don't make me repeat myself." His yelling rattled the picture frames on the wall. Maya stiffened in her seat. She knew what loud voices did to Eli. She knew how his tiny body shook, how his breathing worsened when the chaos around him grew too big. But Derek didn't see consequences, only himself. She stood slowly, her voice soft. "Derek, please, he's sleeping." Derek waved her off like she was a fly buzzing around his ear. "You always exaggerate. He's fine." Her jaw tightened. She wasn't the type to argue, not because she was weak, but because she knew raised voices could shatter her son's sense of safety. Still, her hands shook as she closed her laptop. Derek finally ended his call, tossing his phone onto the couch. "You know what, Maya? If you actually made some real money instead of playing scientist every night, maybe we wouldn't be drowning." She stared at him. "I am working," she whispered. He scoffed. "On what? Another side project where you get paid pennies? I'm out here trying to build something big. You should be thanking me." Her eyes dropped to the floor. Thanking him for abandoning her in the hardest years of her life? For failing to understand what her work truly meant? For choosing ego over family? She felt her throat tighten. But she stayed silent, because that was the only way to keep the peace long enough for Eli to rest. She returned to her desk but couldn't focus. Derek's voice still echoed in her head. His anger wasn't new. It had been growing for months, maybe years, ever since his dreams of being a millionaire started becoming more delusional. But tonight something felt different. Something felt like it was sliding off the edge, ready to fall. Hours passed. The apartment sank into an uneasy quiet. Derek had fallen asleep on the couch, headphones in, dreaming of the riches he believed he deserved. Maya sat still, finishing her last report, before her eyes finally drifted shut. But even in sleep, she felt alert, like her mind was ready to snap awake at the slightest sound, and it did. A soft whimper broke through the stillness. Maya's eyes shot open. She rushed to Eli's room. He was curled into a tight ball, clutching his stomach, his breaths quick and panicked. "Mommy, it hurts." Her heart dropped. She touched his forehead. It was burning. She scooped him into her arms, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Mama's got you." But her voice trembled. She grabbed her purse, wrapped him in a blanket, and rushed for the door. And Derek? Still asleep on the couch, still dreaming, still unaware his entire world was slipping away without him noticing. Maya hesitated, thinking maybe she should wake him. But another sharp cry from Eli pushed her out the door and into the cold night air. As she ran down the stairs with her sick child in her arms, one thought echoed in her mind. If this family was ever going to be saved, she might have to save it alone. The ER smelled like disinfectant and fear, two things Maya had grown used to over the years, but never learned to stomach. She rushed through the automatic doors with Eli's little body burning in her arms, his head tucked against her shoulder, his breaths coming in shallow, frightened bursts. Nurses looked up instantly, reading the panic in her eyes before she even spoke. They whisked him away, placing him gently onto a bed as Maya clung to his hand like it was the only thing keeping her alive. "Ma'am, we need space," a nurse said calmly. Maya stepped back but kept her eyes locked on him. She had watched Eli collapse before, but something about tonight felt different. His skin was too hot, his whimpers too soft, his breathing too fragile. Guilt clawed at her throat. She had been so focused on finishing her reports that she hadn't noticed his fever rising. As nurses hustled around him, checking numbers, adjusting machines, whispering in medical shorthand she couldn't decipher, Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't have to look to know it was Derek. She ignored it. Then it buzzed again and again, relentless. She finally answered. "What?" she whispered, exhausted. "Where the hell are you?" Derek's voice exploded through the phone, loud enough for two nurses to glance over. "I woke up and the house is empty. You think that's funny?" Maya stepped into the hallway to avoid Eli hearing. "He collapsed, Derek. I'm at the hospital. He's very sick." "Oh, here we go again," Derek snapped, as if she'd told him she misplaced her keys. "Do you have any idea how important today was for me? I had a meeting that could have changed everything." Maya closed her eyes. "Our son could die, Derek." There was a brief silence, just long enough to spark hope, but then he sighed dramatically. "Stop being dramatic, Maya. Every time things go my way, you pull me back with some crisis. I swear, you're ruining my future with all this constant drama." Her future? She wanted to scream. Her future was sleeping in a hospital bed, fighting for breath. Her future had a stuffed dog named Mr. Pickles and liked dinosaur stickers. Her future needed stability, care, and two parents who didn't treat him like a burden. "Just come to the hospital," she whispered. "Fine," he muttered, "but this better not mess up my meeting tomorrow." He hung up, Maya stared at her dead phone screen, wondering how the hell she ended up tied to a man who could look at a dying child and still worry about his imaginary business deals. She wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and walked back to Eli's room. He was awake now, eyes glossy, breathing in uneven, shaky pulls. She rushed to his side and brushed his hair back. "Mama's here," she whispered. His tiny fingers curled around her wrist. "Is Daddy coming?" She hesitated. "He said he's on his way," but she didn't know if it was true. A doctor finally stepped in. Dr. Reeves, a kind middle-aged man who treated Eli before. He gave Maya a worried look before speaking. "We're running tests, but his vitals are unstable. Has anything stressful happened recently?" Her throat tightened. "His father and I argued." Dr. Reeves nodded knowingly. "Stress can make his condition worse, loud noises especially." A stab of guilt pierced her ribs. She had spent so long protecting Eli from the world, she didn't see she needed to protect him from his own household. Minutes dragged into hours. Eli drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes calling for Maya, sometimes flinching from invisible memories. And then, finally, Derek strutted through the ER doors, wearing a blazer 2 sizes too tight and a scowl too big for his face. He looked around like he was inconvenienced, not worried. "Where is he?" Derek demanded. "In here." Maya kept her voice steady to avoid another explosion. Derek stepped inside and immediately started ranting. "This is ridiculous. He looks fine. You overreact to everything. I had a deal lined up tonight. You think money grows on trees?" Little Eli whimpered at the sound, clutching his blanket. "Stop yelling," Maya hissed. "I'm not yelling," he yelled. And that's when it happened. A scream so sharp it sliced the room in half. "Stop! Stop! Stop!" Eli cried, covering his ears, shaking violently. "Don't yell! Don't burn! Don't burn!" Maya froze. "Burn?" Before she could process it, Eli began hyperventilating. His heart monitor spiked. Nurses rushed in. Derek stepped back, confused. What's he talking about? The nanny had arrived by then, rushed in after Maya called her earlier, and she grabbed Derek's arm with a strength he didn't expect. "Sir," she said firmly, "he's not screaming at you. He's reliving the fire." Everything stopped. Derek blinked. "What fire?" Maya whispered. "His parents before we adopted him. They died in a house fire while arguing. Loud yelling triggers his trauma." Derek's face drained. Eli was now shaking so hard the mattress rattled. Maya wrapped her arms around him, whispering, "You're safe, baby, you're safe. Mama's here." Doctors sedated him gently, easing him into a calmer sleep. And when the panic settled, Derek stood in the corner, silent, pale, finally understanding that the thing he mocked, ignored, and dismissed wasn't drama, it was trauma. Trauma he was pouring gasoline on every single day. For the first time in years, he had nothing to say. The hallway outside Eli's room felt colder now, like the building itself was holding its breath. Maya stepped out for a moment to breathe, wiping the tears off her cheeks with the back of her sleeve. Derek followed her, but for once he wasn't yelling, wasn't complaining, wasn't blaming. He looked lost, like someone had finally shown him a mirror he'd spent years avoiding. What did she mean?" he whispered, voice trembling. "He thinks he's back in that fire?" Maya turned to him slowly. "Yes, Derek. Every time someone yells, every time a room fills with tension, he hears them again. He hears the fight that happened right before the flames." Derek swallowed hard. I didn't know." "You didn't care to know. she said quietly, but not with cruelty, just truth. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Words didn't work in this space. They rarely did. But inside the hospital room, one small sound did. A soft, terrified whimper. Maya rushed back inside and found Eli curled into himself, knees to chest, breathing fast again. Even sedated, the memories were clawing at him. His tiny fingers trembled against the sheets, and he whispered something so faint she had to lean close to hear it. "Don't let him leave. Don't let him leave me." Her heart cracked, finally understanding the deeper layer. Eli wasn't just afraid of yelling. He was afraid of abandonment, afraid of watching someone he depended on walk away while chaos burned around him, afraid it was happening all over again. Maya's throat tightened. She gently stroked his forehead, whispering, "Nobody's leaving you. Not tonight. Not ever." Dr. Reeves re-entered the room quietly, watching the scene with tired, compassionate eyes. "Mrs. Thompson," he said softly, "we want to keep him overnight. He needs monitoring and calm." Calm, a thing Maya had spent years trying to build alone. Derek stood in the doorway, a shadow of himself. Can I sit with him?" he asked. But Eli flinched just hearing his voice. Even half asleep, the child recoiled from the echo of a man's anger. Maya stepped between them. "Not right now," she said. "He's not ready." Derek's face tightened as if the truth slapped him. He stared at his son, the boy he'd claimed to love, trembling because of him. The nanny rested a gentle hand on Maya's arm. "Let me take your things to the car," she offered. "You stay with him." When Maya nodded, the nanny slipped out silently, leaving the two parents alone with a child who deserved more than either had given him. Eventually, Derek cleared his throat. "Maya, I didn't know it was this bad." "No," she said simply, "because you weren't here. I was trying to build a future. By breaking the one we already had?" she asked, exhausted. He had no answer. Minutes passed. Nurses came and went. Machines beeped softly. The night grew heavier. At last, Derek whispered, "Do you think he hates me?" Maya turned toward him slowly. "No, but he's afraid of you." Derek blinked fast, as if trying to push back tears. "I never wanted that." "But wanting isn't the same as doing," she said. A truth he could no longer dodge. Just then, Eli stirred again, and Maya rushed to his side. He whimpered, clutching her finger with a strength far too big for his little body. She soothed him gently, humming a tune she'd sung since the first night she brought him home. Eli's grip relaxed, his breathing steadied. Watching her, Derek saw something he hadn't let himself see in years. Maya wasn't just a mother. Maya didn't stop him. He stepped out of the room, pausing to look back at his sleeping son, a boy who needed softness, gentleness, consistency. A boy Derek had failed tonight, in a way that couldn't be undone with apologies. He walked down the hallway with slow, heavy steps, each one echoing the truth that had hit him harder than any argument ever could. He wasn't the man his family needed, and for the first time, Derek understood that leaving wasn't a threat. It was exactly what was already happening, piece by piece, every time he chose himself over them. As he disappeared down the corridor, Maya sat beside Eli's bed, stroking his hair until the tremors in his small body faded into a quiet, fragile sleep. She whispered to him softly, almost to herself, "I'm so sorry you had to see that, but I promise, things will be different now." And deep down, she knew this wasn't just the breaking point for Eli. It was the breaking point for her too. The hospital discharged Eli the next afternoon, but Maya didn't go home. Not yet. She drove straight to her office, the secure government facility where she'd been building a future she'd never even told her husband about. She walked past the scanners, the keycard doors, the guards who nodded with unfamiliar respect, and made her way to the executive floor. The board was waiting. They had been waiting since yesterday, the same day she disappeared, after the biggest approval of her life. A tall woman in a tailored suit, Director Hale, stood first. "Maya, you missed the formal signing. We were concerned." Maya forced a tired smile. "My son was in the hospital." The room shifted with sympathetic murmurs. People who dealt with war tech and national security suddenly softened because nothing, not numbers, contracts, or machinery, could outweigh a sick child. "Of course," Hale said quietly. "But your design, it passed every test. You've created something groundbreaking, something the department has needed for years." Maya didn't smile. She didn't have the energy. Director Hale gestured to the table. "The contract is ready. Once you sign, you'll oversee the entire project. Compensation, stock percentages, the patent rights, everything is outlined." Her hand trembled as she lifted the thick folder. Her design, her work, her breakthrough. 5 years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and guilt-fueled energy, all leading to this document. She should feel proud. She should feel ecstatic. Instead, she only felt empty. Yesterday, while engineers celebrated, champagne glasses clinking around her, Eli collapsed. And Derek yelled at her in that hospital hallway while their child struggled to breathe. As she skimmed the pages, one thought echoed again and again. He didn't come. He didn't care. He didn't choose us. Not even for Eli. Never for Eli. Hale watched her closely. "You don't have to decide today. We can reschedule." Maya shook her head. "No, I'm ready." Even saying the words felt like a quiet resurrection, a rebuilding of the pieces Derek had spent years chipping away. She picked up the pen, the contract glowing under the white office lights. Signature lines waited. Eli needed treatment. He needed stability. He needed a protector, a soft place, not a battlefield. Her hand steadied. She signed. Just like that, her life changed. When she finished, Hale extended her hand. "Congratulations, Miss Thompson. You just became one of the most important engineers in the country." Maya blinked. The words landed, but slowly. "Your invention will save lives," Hale continued, "and we're honored to have you lead the project." Save lives. She could save thousands, maybe millions. Yet she couldn't save her marriage. And maybe that was okay. Maybe she wasn't meant to. Leaving the building, contract folder pressed to her chest, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years. Strength. Not the loud, forceful kind Derek worshipped, but a quiet, unshakable kind. The strength that grows from survival. She buckled Eli into the back seat, checked his medicine, tucked a blanket around him. He smiled softly, weak but peaceful. "Mama," he whispered. "Yes, baby. Do we have to go home?" She paused. That word didn't feel like home anymore. She kissed his forehead. "No," she said, "not today." Maya drove away from the place where she had spent years shrinking herself, straight toward a future she hadn't dared to imagine before. Behind her, the life she shared with Derek dimmed like a dying light bulb. Ahead of her, the road stretched wide and open. Her phone buzzed, a text from Derek. "We need to talk." She stared at it for a long moment. Then, she put the phone face down. Some talks didn't need to happen today. Some talks didn't need to happen, ever. What mattered now was Eli, his breathing, his healing, his quiet trust in her arms. Maya glanced at him through the rearview mirror, and something inside her clicked into place. She didn't lose anything yesterday. She gained clarity. The clarity to leave a man who had already left them in every way that counted. The clarity to step into her own power. The clarity to build a home based on safety, not fear. The contract folder gleamed on the seat beside her. $500 million in value, and yet nothing in it mattered as much as the small boy in her back seat. She whispered to herself, to Eli, to the universe that finally felt like it was shifting in her favor. It's our turn now. And with that, Maya pressed the gas and never looked back. The sun was setting by the time Maya pulled into her sister's driveway, the sky painted in streaks of orange and bruised purple, the kind of sky that made endings look strangely beautiful. She sat still for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, listening to Eli's soft breathing in the back seat. He was finally asleep, cheeks warm, eyelids fluttering like he was fighting dreams he wasn't ready to see. Her sister, Talia, opened the front door before Maya even knocked. One look at her face, swollen eyes, trembling lips, hair pulled into a messy knot. And Talia understood everything without a word. "Oh God, Maya," she whispered, pulling her into a hug. Maya didn't cry. She had done enough of that last night. Today, she was hollow, exhausted, but determined. She carried Eli inside and tucked him gently onto the couch, placing a pillow under his head and covering him with a soft knitted blanket. Talia crouched beside her. "Tell me what happened." And for the first time, Maya said the words she'd been choking on for years. "He left us." Talia's eyes widened. "Derek, he left, like left?" Maya shook her head slowly. "He didn't walk away. He stormed out. He yelled at me. He scared Eli so badly he had a panic attack. The doctors said stress makes his condition worse." Her voice cracked. "He chose his money schemes over his own son." Silence settled, heavy and suffocating. Talia finally exhaled, "You don't have to protect him anymore." Maya's eyes flickered. "I think I'd been protecting the version of him I wanted him to be." Talia nodded gently. "But that man doesn't exist." The truth hurt. But hearing it out loud felt like oxygen in a room she didn't know was suffocating her. Later, after Eli drifted deeper into sleep, Maya sat at Talia's small dining table. The overhead light buzzed softly, illuminating the contract folder she'd carried with her all day. Talia eyed it curiously. "What's that?" she asked. Maya hesitated. Then she pushed the folder toward her. "My project was approved yesterday, before Eli collapsed." Talia opened the folder and froze. Her jaw dropped. "Wait, this is real?" "It's real." "Maya," Talia's voice cracked. "This is life-changing." But Maya didn't smile. She stared at her hands, hands that had typed, designed, rebuilt, carried, cleaned, soothed, protected. Hands that had done everything alone. Talia touched her shoulder. "You're allowed to be proud." Maya shook her head. "I didn't even celebrate. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't have time to feel anything except fear for Eli." "And Derek?" Talia asked softly. Maya let out a tired, empty laugh. "Derek was yelling about how I ruined his big opportunity. He didn't even ask if Eli was okay." Talia's expression changed, anger flickering behind her eyes. "Maya, you can't keep living like this. Eli can't." Maya looked down at the contract again, the project that could change her career, her finances, her entire future. It wasn't just a job. It was a lifeline, a way out, a way forward. Her voice was barely a whisper. I think the man I married died years ago. Talia squeezed her hand, then let him stay dead. The clock on the wall ticked softly, each second sounding like a small piece of Maya's old life falling away. The next morning, Maya returned to the hospital for a follow-up. Eli held her hand tightly, afraid of everything, the noises, the people, the memories replaying in his little mind. The doctor reviewed the charts, nodding slowly. He needs consistency, he said. Routine, calm, a predictable environment. Stress and yelling can worsen his condition significantly. Maya felt the words dig into her heart. I understand. The doctor placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. He's lucky to have you. Just make sure he has safety at home, too. Home. A word that didn't feel like hers anymore. On the drive back to Talia's house, Maya stared straight ahead, eyes tired but focused. She wasn't crying. She wasn't panicking. Something inside her had shifted. Something long overdue. When they arrived, she tucked Eli into bed and stepped outside into the cool morning air. She called her lawyer, her HR director, her landlord, and finally, the bank. Her voice never shook. Not once. By noon, her entire life had changed. Papers were filed. Accounts were separated. Locks were changed. Access revoked. Every step she took was a step away from Derek, and a step toward freedom. Talia watched her, stunned. You're really doing this? Yes, Maya said quietly. Eli deserves better. And I do too. Talia hugged her tightly. I'm proud of you. Maya's phone vibrated. Derek, we need to talk. I'm coming over. She stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed one sentence. No, not today. She blocked his number. Then she breathed, really breathed, for the first time in years. Inside, Eli stirred softly. Maya walked over and kissed his forehead. His eyes fluttered open, and he whispered, Mama? Yes, baby. Can we stay here? I like it here. It's quiet. Her heart cracked and mended all at once. Yes, she whispered. We're staying somewhere safe. Eli smiled gently, and Maya realized something painfully beautiful. She had been holding her family together alone, but now she was holding them forward, and she wasn't turning back. Derek's downfall didn't happen in one moment. It happened in slow, embarrassing pieces, like a man tripping downstairs but convincing himself he was in control the whole way down. The morning after he stormed out of the hospital, Derek woke up in a cheap motel room that smelled like old carpet and despair. His big investment opportunity, the one he claimed would make them millionaires, was all he could think about. He stared at the wrinkled paperwork spread across the bed, the promises of guaranteed returns, the charts he never understood, the influencer videos he believed more than he believed his own wife. He convinced himself Maya was the problem. She never supported his vision. She never believed in him. She was holding him back. That story kept him warm for a few hours, until reality cut through it. His bank account was lower than he remembered. His credit card was almost maxed. His mentor wasn't answering the phone. The website for his investment was suddenly under maintenance. His chest tightened. He called Maya 3 times. No answer. 4 times. Still nothing. He threw his phone on the bed, pacing the tiny room like a trapped animal. She's just being dramatic, he muttered to himself. She'll call back. She always does. But she didn't. By noon, Derek showed up at their house, the house that once fed his ego with its neat lawn and double garage and the image of success he clung to like oxygen. Except the key didn't work. He jiggled the handle, confused. Then again, harder. Finally, a neighbor called across the street, her arms folded. "You looking for Maya? She moved out yesterday." "What?" Derek snapped, walking toward her. "Moved where?" The neighbor shrugged. "Heard she's doing real well now. Got some big job. She took that baby and left. And honestly, good for her." Her tone wasn't mocking. It was pity. Derek felt heat crawl up his neck, a burning embarrassment no rage could fight off. He stormed back to his car and drove to Talia's house, pounding on the door. Talia didn't answer. The curtains didn't move. The locks stayed locked. A message had been delivered without a single word spoken. "You don't get access to them anymore." He drove aimlessly, cursing, screaming into the steering wheel. But beneath all the yelling was a deeper truth, finally clawing its way to the surface. He had done this. He had abandoned them long before they abandoned him. At a stoplight, his phone buzzed. A notification from his investment platform. Account flagged. Funds unreachable. He stared at the screen, stunned. He had been scammed. Completely. Utterly. He drove straight to the office of his old job, the one he quit 2 days earlier, with a dramatic speech about being too big for this place. His boss looked at him the same way someone looks at a stranger on the bus. "Derek, why are you here?" "I need my job back," Derek whispered. The boss sighed. "We filled your position this morning." Derek's mouth opened, but no words came out. The room was spinning. When he stepped outside, it started raining. A slow, cold drizzle that matched the weight sitting on his chest. For the first time in years, Derek didn't feel like the smartest guy in the room. He felt small. Very, very small. That night, he returned to the motel, wet, broke, and shaking. He stared at himself in the mirror, the face of a man who spent years blaming everyone else, only to discover the problem was staring back at him. He looked older, tired, hollowed out by greed. He sat on the edge of the bed and whispered the words he had avoided for so long. "Maya, Eli, I'm sorry, but the walls didn't care. The universe didn't care." And Maya sure as hell didn't hear him. The next morning, he tried calling again, one last attempt, but his call went straight to voicemail. He didn't know it yet, but Maya had changed the number, blocked his calls, severed every tie except the legal ones she was handling quietly behind the scenes. Neighbors whispered about him. Friends avoided him. His business partners vanished. And the woman he thought would always put up with him, she was rising higher than he could ever reach. He tried not to think about it. But deep down, one truth ate at him. He didn't just lose his family. He threw them away. And now he had nothing left to chase except the echo of his own mistakes. The press conference was already packed when Derek arrived, though he had no idea that's where he was headed. He had been driving around aimlessly, half delirious from sleeplessness, grief, and shame, following a rumor he overheard at a gas station. "Isn't that the girl who invented that defense tech thing?" "Yeah, they got some big CEO announcement today, national news level." He didn't process much of it, but one word cut through the fog. Maya. His Maya? Couldn't be. Had to be some other Maya, some other brilliant woman getting applause while he drowned in his own failures. Still, something pulled him there. Ego, panic, guilt, maybe all three. He parked several blocks away. The building's lot was full of news vans, black SUVs, government cars, and reporters in stiff suits clutching microphones. Rain tapped lightly against the windshield, like the sky itself wanted to witness what was coming. Inside, the lobby buzzed with tension. Voices echoed, cameras flashed, security guards scanned badges. Derek pushed past the crowd until someone snapped, "Sir, this event is for invited personnel only." "I'm looking for someone," Derek snapped back. "My wife." But he froze. There she was, standing behind the podium. Spotlights on her, engineers flanking her, officials nodding respectfully. Cameras pointed directly at her, like she was the only person in the room who mattered. Maya, not tired, not quiet, not small. She wore a sharp navy suit, hair pulled back, posture strong, stronger than he had ever seen her. She wasn't the woman he dismissed, underestimated, or yelled at. She was someone the world admired, someone he never truly saw. Director Hale stepped up to the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Today we officially introduce the head of the new $500 million Defense Innovation Division." People leaned forward. "A woman whose design will change national security standards worldwide." Applause filled the hall. And then, the words that shattered Derek's entire world. "Please welcome our new division CEO, Maya Thompson." The crowd erupted. Derek didn't clap. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. The woman he belittled, the woman he called not ambitious enough, the woman he left alone with a sick child, was standing on a national stage, being honored by the government as a visionary leader. His mouth hung open like a man waking from the worst dream of his life. Maya stepped to the podium, calm and steady. Reporters leaned in, cameras zooming, lights brightening until it looked like she was glowing. And then she spoke, her voice soft but powerful. "This work is dedicated to my son, Eli, who taught me what real courage is." Her voice strained slightly at the end of his name, love and pain mixing together. But she held herself steady. A photographer snapped a picture that would appear on dozens of news sites within hours. A mother rising, a leader emerging, a woman reborn. Derek pushed through the crowd, shouting, "Maya! Maya, wait!" Security immediately stepped in. "Sir, stay back." "I need to talk to her," he barked. "She's speaking," one guard said flatly. But Derek kept pushing, desperation dripping off every movement. Cameras turned, reporters whispered. Director Hale glanced at Maya. "Do you want us to remove him?" Maya's eyes flicked toward Derek, just for a second. He looked wrecked, the suit wrinkled, collar stained, hair messy, hope dying right in front of her. The man who always thought she was beneath him, now reaching up toward her like she was his last lifeline. She looked away, and that was enough. Derek stopped shouting. Security guided him back, not roughly, just firmly, like escorting a stranger who didn't belong. He stumbled into the hallway, hands shaking. The applause inside felt like thunder, like justice finally arriving, like the world telling him the truth he'd never wanted to hear. "You lost the best thing you ever had, and you lost her because of you." He leaned against the wall, sliding down until he sat on the cold tile. His breath hitched, his vision blurred. He whispered, barely audible, "What have I done?" His voice cracked, echoing off the steel and glass. Inside the conference room, Maya continued her speech. Outside, Derek's world fell apart. But the universe, it kept moving, with or without him. Hours after the press conference ended, the building had emptied out. The lights were dimmed, echoing long shadows down the marble hallway. Outside, the sky had gone deep blue and quiet. Most of the reporters were gone. Government cars moved on. The crowd dissolved. But Derek stayed. Not because he was invited, not because he belonged there, but because he was broken, and this was the only place where the truth had finally cornered him. A security guard approached. "Sir, she asked us to give you 5 minutes. After that, you gotta leave." Derek nodded weakly. 5 minutes. That's all I need. He stood near the far end of the hallway, fidgeting with the hem of his jacket, like a man trying to look bigger than the shame swallowing him whole. Then he heard soft footsteps. Maya turned the corner. She wasn't wearing the sharp corporate mask anymore. No cameras, no applause. Just a tired mother with dark circles under her eyes and a backbone that hadn't cracked even once today. She stopped a few feet away, arms folded lightly in front of her chest. Not defensive, just done. Derek swallowed hard. "Maya, please. I didn't know. I didn't know you were—" Her voice cut in, quiet, but blade sharp. "You didn't know because you never asked." He flinched. She stepped closer. "You never wanted to know my dreams, my work, my struggles. You only wanted to know when you were gonna win." "Maya, I was—" "No," she said, gently lifting a hand to stop him. "Don't make excuses you can't back up." Her eyes softened with something worse than anger, disappointment. "You didn't yell at me because you were stressed. You yelled because that's who you became." Derek's voice shook. I thought you'd be proud of me when my investments hit. You left your son in a hospital bed," she said, voice trembling with emotion she had been holding in for too long. "You walked out on a 6-year-old who couldn't breathe. You walked out on me when I was collapsing inside. And you think I cared about your investments?" He covered his face with both hands, shoulders shaking. I messed up so bad." She didn't move toward him. She didn't comfort him. She didn't know him that. "Maya, let me fix this," he begged. "Please, let me come home." That word home hit her harder than any apology. Her jaw tightened. She whispered, "Home isn't a place where a child hides from his father's temper." He looked up, eyes red. "I can change." "I'm sure you can," she said softly, "but you won't change with me." Silence. Heavy, final, heartbreaking. He searched her face for even the smallest sign of hope. A crack, a hesitation, a tear he could latch onto. But the truth shone clear in her eyes. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't sad. She was free. "Maya, I love you," he whispered. She took a deep breath, pain flickering across her face. "You love the idea of being a provider. You didn't love the job of being a father." That truth struck him harder than any punch. She stepped past him, gently, like passing someone already walking away. He reached for her wrist, but stopped himself when he realized he no longer had the right to touch her. She turned back one last time. "You didn't lose me because of the money," she said. "You lost me because when our son needed you most, you chose yourself." A tear slid down Derek's cheek. "Is this it?" he whispered. Maya nodded. "It has to be. For Eli and for me." She didn't wait for him to respond. She walked away, heels clicking softer and softer, until the sound disappeared around the corner. Derek stayed frozen, staring at the empty hallway, like it was the ruins of a life he never saw collapsing. Under his breath, broken, he whispered, "I lost everything, and the only people who ever loved me." Outside, the wind rustled through the trees as Maya stepped into the back seat of her black SUV. Eli was inside, small and sleepy, curled under a blanket. "Mama," he murmured, "you okay?" She kissed his forehead, tears slipping silently. "Yeah, baby," she whispered. "We're okay now. The car pulled away. Derek stood alone at the lobby window, watching the SUV disappear into the night, taking with it the family he had traded away piece by piece. 5 minutes was over. So was his life with them. Weeks passed, and the rhythm of Maya's life shifted into something softer, something real. The chaos, the shouting, the long nights arguing with a man who wasn't listening, all of that faded, like a storm that finally burned itself out. Now her mornings began with sunlight crawling across the curtains of a quiet townhouse she rented near the children's hospital. Eli's treatments were steady, the doctors optimistic, and for the first time in years, Maya could breathe without her chest tightening. She woke each day before him, sitting on the edge of his bed just to watch him sleep. In the soft glow of dawn, he looked peaceful. No fear in his little brow. No trembling hands, no flinching at sounds. He slept like a child should sleep, safe. Maya knew that safety didn't come from money or fancy titles. It came from silence, gentleness, consistency, all the things Derek had shattered, and all the things she was rebuilding piece by piece. One morning, Eli stirred and blinked up at her. "Mama?" he whispered, rubbing his eyes. "Are you tired?" She smiled. "A little." "You don't gotta stay all night," he said in a tiny voice. "But I want to," she whispered. "I like being here with you." Eli reached out his small hand, placing it on top of hers. Warm, trusting, certain she wasn't going anywhere. And she wasn't. Later that day, Maya stopped by her new office, a clean, bright suite at the top of a government building, where she now oversaw an entire team of engineers. Glass walls, humming computers, a world of innovation at her fingertips. But she didn't walk in like a CEO chasing glory. She walked in like a mother who finally understood what mattered. Her assistant handed her a folder. "These are the documents for the foundation you wanted to open." The one for single parents. Maya flipped through the pages slowly. The Eli Foundation for Hope, dedicated to parents who were raising their children alone, not by choice, but by necessity. Funds for childcare, transportation, emotional counseling, medical support. Everything she once wished she'd had. Her voice softened. "Let's get it launched next month." That afternoon, she picked Eli up from physical therapy. It was raining lightly, that soft, misty rain that drifts rather than falls. They walked hand in hand to the car, Eli jumping in puddles, Maya laughing at how his shoes squished. Inside the car, as she buckled his seatbelt, Eli said, "Mama, do you think Daddy misses us?" Maya paused, not out of anger, out of truth. "I think he misses what he lost," she said gently. "But baby, missing you and deserving you are not the same thing." Eli nodded slowly, his little mind trying to understand a world that had already shown him too much darkness. But then he said something that broke her heart open. "I'm glad you stayed." She closed her eyes, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "I will always stay." That night, she sat on the couch with him nestled against her side, the warm glow of a lamp filling the room. She read him a bedtime story, her voice soft and steady, every word soaking into him like medicine. And as she read, her own voiceover played quietly in her heart. The truth she had earned through fire. Sometimes the people we love hurt us not with their fists, but with their anger, with their absence, with their silence when we needed their voice the most. And sometimes choosing to walk away isn't giving up. It's giving your child the peace they deserve. When the story ended, Eli had fallen asleep against her shoulder. She carried him to his bed, tucked him under the covers, and stood there for a long moment listening to the steady little breaths that once terrified her, because she thought she might lose him. Now each breath felt like a promise. She kissed his forehead, turned off the light, left the door slightly open, just the way he liked it. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall and let a tired, grateful smile tug at her lips. She had built machines. She had built inventions. She had built a life-changing project for the nation. But this, rebuilding her son's sense of safety, was the greatest thing she had ever engineered. Outside, the rain slowed. A soft wind moved through the trees, and the final truth of her journey echoed like a quiet prayer. It's not money that makes you a parent. It's gentleness.